Good day, everyone. For today's discussion, we will be discussing our third lesson, the intellectual revolutions, in which it it's a major shifts in thinking, like fundamentally change how humans or people in the world see themselves. Intellectual revolutions are not small, gradual changes. They are big leaps that overturn the old ways of thinking. And these revolutions can happen when science and technology interact in a ways that lead to paradigm shifts and completely change the dominant worldview. Let's understand first what is intellectual revolution. Intellectual revolutions are transformative moments when human beings replace old explanation of the world with a new one. It's at the same time it's more accurate one. They are often the result of new discoveries, but they also depend on the willingness of our people to question tradition and, of course, accept evidences that might contradict long held beliefs. The key feature of an intellectual revolution is the paradigm shift, a complete change in the underlying assumptions and methods of a field. Before a paradigm shift, most scientists or thinkers they work under the same rules, at the same time the same explanations. But when enough evidences accumulates against the old way of thinking, a new paradigm can emerge that explains the world better. For example, before the 16th century, almost everyone in Europe they believed in geocentric model of the universe, that Earth was the center of everything. This idea fit with religious teachings. At the same time, it was supported by various philosophers such as Copernicus and Aristotle. I no, sorry, it was Aristotle and Ptolemy. Sorry. However, after a careful astronomical observations done by Copernicus, at the same time later on, followed by Galileo Galilei, it was revealed that the sun, not the earth, was the center of the universe. That is what we call the heliocentric model. So this is not just about new scientific fact. It completely changed humanity's worldview in which our generation today, we still followed the heliocentric model in which we believe that the sun is the center of the universe. It is very important to understand also the intellectual revolutions are not purely scientific events. They are social and cultural as well. So new ideas often face resistance because they threaten existing power structures, religious beliefs, at the same time economic system. That is why these revolutions often take decades or even centuries to be fully accepted. So the scientific revolution, we have an age of the golden age of discovery. Actually, the scientific revolution, it was between 16th to 17th century. It is one of the most important intellectual revolution in history because it was a period of dramatic change in which in which scientific discovery or scientific inquiry shifted from relying on tradition, authority, and philosophical speculation to using scientific observation, experimentation, and mathematics. Before the scientific revolution, much of the European science was based on ancient Greek and Roman ideas, combined with medieval religious philosophy. And because of that, people tend to accept explanation because they are respected authorities. They believe on the higher ups. They believe on people who have higher authority, just like Aristotle or the church, who who have said they were true. However, due to the conduct of experimentation, and that time also experimentation was rare, and new ideas were often discouraged. If there's something or if there was something that was being discovered at the time, church will be the one who will who will fight it that is not relevant. However, the scientific revolution were true, and it was changed. Scientists such as Galileo Galilei, Johannes Kepler, Isaac Newton, and Francis Bacon, they began insisting on gathering evidences, testing hypotheses, and even using mathematical reasoning to explain natural phenomena. Instead of relying traditional method, they focused on empirical evidences through information gained at the same time through observation and experimentation. That is why we have here the what we call scientific method. And this is the revolution who introduces to rather he introduced to us the scientific method, which involves starts with asking questions, forming hypotheses, conducting experiments, or making careful observations, recording and analyzing results, and drawing conclusions based on evidence. The result was a flood of new discoveries, especially in the field of astronomy, physics, biology, chemistry, and medicine. And people learned that Earth moves around the sun, that the same physical laws apply everywhere in the universe, and living organisms can be studied systematically. However, these discoveries often often clashed with religious teachings, leading to tensions and sometimes persecutions. Galileo, for example, was tried by the Inquisition for supporting the heliocentric theory. That's how powerful the church before, because people only believe what has been the teachings by the church. Still, the momentum of scientific revolution could not be stopped, and it laid the foundation of the modern science as we know it today. While there have been many intellectual revolutions, there are three stand out for their extraordinary influence on how humans understand themselves and the world. We have the Copernican revolution, in which it changed our view of the cosmos, showing Earth is not the center of the universe. We have the Darwinian revolution. It changed our view of life's origin, showing that species, including humans, evolved over time through natural process. And lastly, the Freudian revolution. It changed our overview on human mind, revealing revealing that much of our behavior is influenced by unconscious thoughts and desires. And class, these revolutions are connected by common theme. Each one dethroned humanity from a position of assumed superiority. Copernicus removed Earth from the cosmic center. Darwin removed human from being a separate criterion, and Sigmund Freud, removed the conscious mind from fully control over behavior. Each revolution also faced resistance because it challenged existing worldviews. But over time, their core ideas become deeply integrated into modern science, culture, behavior, and everyday thinking. Let's start with the first one, the Copernican revolution. Before Copernicus, people believed that the Earth is the center of the universe. That's geocentric model. The Earth was the unmoving center of the universe, and everything else revolved around it. And this model, developed by ancient Greek philosopher Ptolemy, and it of course it is fit with religious teachings that place human at the center of creation. Human being the time, they are so reliant on the teaching of the church, at the same time the idea of Copernican, of Ptolemy rather. However, in the early 1500s, Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish astronomer, proposed a bold new ideas, the heliocentric model, in which the sun is the center of the universe. Of course, the sun is the center of the universe, and the earth, along with the planets, orbit it. It is the earth and the other planets who revolve around the sun. He presented this idea in the work on the revolution of the celestial spheres in his book. Copernicus argued that this model explained planetary motion, where more simply than Ptolemy's complex system of epicycles. For example, the strange looping movements of planets could be explained naturally if Earth itself was moving. The Copernican model was revolutionary because it completely changed humanity's sense of place in the universe. It changes our view. It implied that the Earth was just one planet among many, and it is not the fixed center of all creation. And this idea met resistance from religious authorities, but it eventually inspired other astronomers like Johannes Kepler, who discovered the orbits are elliptical, and Galileo Galilei, who used telescopes to observe moons orbiting Jupiter and prove not everything revolves around Earth. Today, the heliocentric model is the foundation of astronomy, space exploration, and navigation, all starting from Copernicus' daring insight. The heliocentric model proposed Copernicus was not just a simple rearrangement of planets in the solar system. It completely redefined humanity's place in the cosmos and transformed the way science works. This was radical from departure of Ptolemy's geocentric model, which have been accepted for over 1,400 years. In the geocentric system, explaining planetary motion required complicated epicycles to account from phenomena like retrograde motion. The heliocentric model explained those motions simply they were an illusion caused by Earth moving faster than some planets and overtaking them. Why it mattered so much? Of course, predictive accuracy. The Copernican model made it much easier to predict planetary positions. Astronomers could calculate where planet would be months or years in advance with improvised precision. In science, the ability to make accurate predictions is a key sign that theory is valid. Next, foundation for future development or discoveries. Later, astronomers built on Copernicus' work to refine our understanding of the solar system, such as Tycho Brahe made precise observations that challenged circular orbits, Johannes Kepler, who used Brahe's data to discover that the planets travel in ellipses, not perfect circles, and it improves accuracy. Take note, later, up until now, we believe that the orbit is elliptical. Now, Galileo Galilei, who used his telescope to observe the moons of Jupiter and phases of Venus, both of which supported heliocentrism and could not be explained by geocentric model. Next, the challenging authority. The Copernican model directly contradicted the prevailing interpretations of certain biblical passages and the long-standing church teachings. For centuries, religious authorities had supported geocentrism as part of humanity's special role in creation. By removing Earth from the center, Copernicus forced people to question not only scientific ideas, but also the theological worldview of time. The shift from geocentrism to heliocentrism was deeply symbolic. It suggested that humans were not the focal point of the universe, but part of a vast, ordered system governed by natural laws. And this humbling realization is often compared to later revolutions for Darwin and Freud, in which humanity's self image was further challenged. Now, let's proceed to another revolution, the Darwinian revolution, in which the evolution by natural selection. In this revolution, people believe that we came from monkey. By mid 19th century, science had made a remarkable progress in understanding the physical world, and because of we should be thankful to scientific revolution. At the same time, the cosmos made by discovery by Copernicus. But one innermost mystery remained: where did all the different forms of life come from? And how did they change over time? For centuries, the most widely accepted answer in Europe was all that species were created and separately and perfectly by God, and they had remained unchanged since the moment of creation. This belief knows as the fixity of species, which is fit with religious teachings and the idea of divinely ordered nature. However, into this world came Charles Darwin, an English naturalist whose work would fundamentally change biology and human self-understanding. Darwinian revolutionary idea was that species are not fixed but evolve over time through a natural law-governed process called natural selection. Darwin's path to this idea began in 1831 when at the age of 22 he was able to join scientific expedition aboard the HMS Beagle, a British survey ship tasked with mapping coastlines of South America and other regions. The voyage lasted almost 5 years and took Darwin to diverse environments from the Brazilian rainforest to the volcanic Galapagos Islands in the Pacific. And in the Galapagos Island, Darwin observed something remarkable. Each island had its own distinct species of finch, which beaks shape differently depending on the available food. Some had large and powerful beaks for cracking seeds. Others had long, slender beaks for probing cactus flowers for catching insects. And by that, Darwin began to suspect that these birds had not been created separately for each island. Instead, they have descended from a single ancestral species that had somehow reached the islands and then changed gradually over generations to adapt different food sources. After years of study and reflection, Darwin concluded that variation exists. Within any population, individuals differ in size, color, shape, behavior, and other traits. Struggle for survival, or also called as of the fittest. Resources like food, water, and space are limited, so not all individuals survive to reproduce. Differential survival and reproduction, in which individuals with traits better suited to the environment are more likely to survive and have offspring. Another, inheritance of traits, in which beneficial traits are passed on the next generation, becoming more common over time. Over many generations, this process, the natural selection, can produce major changes in a species, including the emergence of entirely new species. The book that shook the world, in which in 1859, Darwin published On the Origin of Species, presenting extensive evidences for evolution from fossil records, comparative anatomy, embryology, and geographical distribution of species. The book argued that all life on Earth, including humans, share common ancestry. And this was revolutionary and deeply unsettling idea for many people. It challenged us. It challenged the belief of the people that humans were a separate creation, made in God's image and distinct from the rest of nature. Instead, Darwin placed humanity firmly within animal kingdom, related to all other living things by common descent. The publication of the Book of Origin, of course, it was a scientific earthquake because Darwin's theory of evolution, natural selection, became one of the important frameworks in biology. It also sparked fierce debate, scientifically, religiously, and socially. Let's discuss misconceptions about Darwin's theory. Over the years, Darwin ideas have often misunderstood or misrepresented. According to them, humans evolved from modern monkeys. Darwin never said this. Instead, he explained that human and modern primates share a common ancestor that lived million years ago. Human and monkeys are evolutionary cousins, not direct descendants from one another. Another misconception is evolution is a ladder of progress. That's a popular misleading image. The march of progress. It shows a straight line from ape to human. This suggests evolution is a one-way path of improvement, in which in reality, evolution is more like a branching tree. Some branches survive and diversify. Others go extinct. And there's no predetermined direction towards higher forms, only adaptation to environment. Another misconception is the survival of the fittest means the strongest survive. This phrase, often wrongly linked directly to Darwin, was coined by philosopher Herbert Spencer. In evolutionary terms, fitness means how well an organism can survive and reproduce its environment, not the physical strength alone. So this Darwin's theory, it became the central unifying concept in biology. It explained patterns in anatomy, fossil fuels, geography, embryology. Embryology means early embryos of different animals show striking similarities. And this framework laid the groundwork of later discoveries, including genetics. When Gregory Mendel's work on inheritance was rediscovered in the early 20th century, it combined Darwin's theory to form the modern synthesis, the foundation of today's evolutionary biology. Darwin ideas spread far beyond science. In medicine, understanding how pathogens evolve develop vaccine and treatments. In agriculture, selective breeding of crops and livestock uses principles similar to natural selection. And lastly, conservation. Protecting our diversity depends on understanding how species adapt or fail to adapt to environmental change. However, Darwin's ideas were sometimes misused. The concept of survival of the fittest was twisted by some philosophical thinkers into social Darwinism. It's a distorted ideology used to justify racism, colonialism, and economic inequality. And they misuses highlight the need to understand science accurately and apply it ethically. Darwin himself was cautious about making statements on religion. He did not identify as an atheist. Instead, he saw natural selection as the mechanism by which life diversified positively within a universe created by a higher power. And this nuance is often lost in public debates about evolution. Let's proceed to the last scientific revolution, intellectual revolution. We have the Sigmund Freud, the Freudian revolution, unveiling the unconscious mind. Sigmund Freud is a behaviorist, a psychologist. By early 20th century, science had already transformed humanity's understanding of the cosmos and the life on Earth. The next great challenge was to understand the human mind, our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Before Sigmund Freud, psychology mainly focused on conscious thought, willpower, and observable behavior. Mental disorders were often poorly understood, that sometimes treated as moral failings or even supernatural problems. But Freud's work dramatically shifted this view by proposing that much of human behavior is driven by hidden unconscious process, the thoughts, the desires that to operate outside of our awareness, but influence our actions, dreams, and emotion. Anyway, who was Sigmund Freud? Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist who initially studied medicine and specialized the nervous system. Psychological and while working with patients who had symptoms like paralysis or blindness without any physical injury, Freud began to suspect psychological, not physical, causes were responsible. Through his clinical work, he developed psychoanalysis, both as a theory of how the mind works and as a method of treatment. We have Freud's a model of mind. Freud divided the human mind into three different parts. The conscious part thoughts and perceptions we are currently aware of. Preconscious, the memories and information we can bring to mind if needed. And unconscious, it's a deep mental process, fears, desires, and memories hidden from awareness but influencing behavior. And later on, there is a structural model that was later developed. We have the id, ego, and superego. The id is the primitive, instinctual part of the mind seeking immediate pleasure and avoiding pain. The ego, the rational, realistic part that mediates between its desires and demands of the real world. Meanwhile, the superego, the moral conscience shaped by culture, parents, and societal rules. These parts are constant tension. The ego uses defense mechanism like repression, burying unwanted thoughts. The ego, the one who balances the id and superego. Denial also as part of the ego as defense mechanism to manage conflict between desires, morals, and reality. We also have Freud's theory of development. Freud also believed that personality develops in early childhood through a series of psychosexual stages: the oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital stage. And each stage focuses on different sources of pleasure, and unresolved conflicts in a stage could lead to fixations that influence adult personality. So here's the question: why Freud's ideas were revolutionary? Before Freud, the dominant belief was that humans were rational beings in full control of their actions. Freud shattered this assumption by showing we're often guided by unconscious impulses that we cannot directly control. In a way, Freud's revolution was a third great dethronement of humanity. Copernicus, we are not the center of the universe. Darwin, we are not separate creation from other animals. And here it comes Freud, we are not even master of our own minds. And this was deeply unsettling, but also opened the door to a new scientific and therapeutic approach to understanding human behavior. Now, let's discuss Freud's enduring impact and criticism. Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory was one of the most influential, at the same time controversial, intellectual revolutions in modern history. His ideas changed how people thought about human mind, how mental illness should be treated, and even how literature, the art, everyday conversation approach human motivation. We have the modern therapy. Introduction to talk therapy. Before Freud, treatment for mental illness was often crude, inhumane, purely physical. But because of Freud's psychoanalysis, introduced the idea that simply talking through problems in a safe and structured environment could be therapeutic. And this was the foundation that now what we call psychotherapy or the talk therapy. The concept of unconscious, even though the details of Freud's model are debated, the general idea that much of human thought and feeling happens outside of unconscious awareness is now widely accepted in psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral science. The influence of modern therapies. While few therapists today use Freud's method exactly as he practiced them, his ideas paved the way for many approaches such as psychodynamic therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy or the CBT, and the trauma-informed therapy. The integration into popular culture. Terms like Freudian sleep, repression, ego, and Oedipus complex have entered everyday language. Even people who have never read Freud are familiar with these concepts because they've become part of cultural vocabulary. The influence in psychology. Freud theories have a profound effect on arts, literature, and social sciences. In literature and film, many writers and filmmakers uses Freudian concepts to develop complex characters and explore themes of desire, fear, and inner conflict. In art and surrealism, arts like Salvador Dali drew Freud's ideas about dreams and the unconscious to create works that challenge rational interpretation. In sociology and anthropology, Freud's emphasis on the early childhood and social relationships inspired new studies of culture and family. However, there are criticisms about Freud's theory. Despite of his influence, Freud's work has been criticized on several fronts. First, lack of scientific testability. Many Freud ideas, such as the id, ego, and superego, are difficult to, or impossible to test empirically. In modern science, theories are expected to be falsifiable, meaning they can be proven wrong if evidence contradicts them. Another, overemphasis on sexuality. Freud often attributed psychological problems to repressed sexual desires, which many later psychologists found too narrow and culturally biased. Next, by a sample of patients. Most Freud patients were middle and upper class Europeans in early 1900s. His conclusions may not apply universally across culture or time periods. While science has moved beyond many of Freud's specific theories, his central insight that unseen mental processes shape our lives. It remains cornerstone of psychology, neuroscience, and even marketing politics. Today's research into implicit bias, subconscious decision making, and emotional regulation continues to explore themes Freud introduced over a century ago. And that concludes our discussion this evening. But before we will end, let me share with you something. Now, let's have a recall about the three let's summarize everything, no? Looking at the Copernican, Darwinian, and Freudian revolutions together, we can see a clear pattern. Each one fundamentally changed humanity's perception of itself by challenging deeply rooted beliefs. And these revolutions did not just update facts, they overturned worldviews, they altered the trajectory of science, and even reshaped the relationship between knowledge, technology, and society. Together, these revolutions strip away layers of human centrality. For Copernicus, humanity is not the center of the universe. For Darwin, humanity is not part from the animal kingdom. I mean, humanity is not separate from the animal kingdom. And lastly, Freud, humanity is not even full control of its own mind. Each revolution, the world seemed bigger, more complex, and less centered on human beings. So why this matters in our subject, science and technology and society? It shows scientific progress depends on questioning authority, gathering evidences, and refining models over time. Of course, it demonstrates that new tools, such as telescopes, clinical methods, that are often make revolutions possible by revealing phenomena that we can't observe before. And lastly, it reminds us that new scientific ideas can be met with resistance when they challenge identity, beliefs, or power structure. Over time, however, these ideas can shape education, policy, culture, and even our everyday language in our daily living. The lesson is clear. Intellectual revolutions are not just about new facts. They are about the interplay of evidence, innovation, and societal change. And understanding them, it helps us see how today's discoveries, such as the artificial intelligence, the genetic engineering, or climate change, might be the seeds of the next great revolution in human thought. That would be all, and thank you.